Hey, what's up, guys? Some people had asked me about what my thoughts were about James MacDonald from Harvest Christian Fellowship, I think is the name of his church in Chicago. Now, let me say this first off, is that I'm not a pastor that usually talks bad about pastors. But because it's been in the national conversation about churches, some people had asked me about it, and so I wanted to give my thoughts on it. Again, I'm not a guy that goes around and talks about pastors. I think there's like 300, 400,000 churches in America, and the bulk of them are great godly men that do great godly things for the kingdom, and I love those guys, and I think they do a great job. But what I think that this issue has brought to the forefront is this, and if you don't know the issue, you can find the news stories. There's a news story about planting some stuff on a guy's computer. There's a news story this week that talks about some hitmen that were supposedly encouraged to go and kill somebody, and this is from a pastor of a church. Now, here's what I'll speak in general terms, not specifically about James MacDonald, but just in general, is that I think it's always dangerous when a pastor or anybody is so concerned about numbers at the expense of anything else. And what's hard is that the sermons and the books and stuff that had coming out of that church, for the most part, were pretty solid. They had a good doctrine, and it wasn't aberrant theology. It was very, very good. But whenever you see something that's just so enormous, that it always is going to come at some sort of cost. And I think it's very important to never be willing to bend in any sort of way, theologically or personally, when it comes to your integrity, and use it under this guise of, man, we've just got to be as big as possible. Are there big churches out there that love Jesus, love his word, do great work? Yes, of course there is. There's great churches that do that. But there's also big churches that have big name pastors that have horrible theology, don't do good things, and people think that just because they're big, it means that they're good. Big doesn't mean that they're good. Just like small doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad. You can have a healthy church of 50, or you can have an unhealthy church of 5,000, but you can also have an unhealthy church of 50 and a healthy church of 5,000. And so I say that to tell you that going to a big church isn't a problem. If you live there and you want to go to a big church, go to a big church. But the problem is that as these churches become bigger and bigger, their influence becomes bigger and bigger, and people become people that just watch online church. They consider that their church. If you can't have a conversation with your pastor, if you can't get to the main guy, I just personally, I think that's a concern, because when that guy becomes insulated and no longer has someone to challenge him, or never has people to ask him those tough questions, I think it just kind of separates him, and then he can become just kind of out of the place where he needs to be. And I know it's easy because people say, well, you've got a certain size church when it comes to me, or what happens when you get big. Man, and I'll just publicly say it. I don't want to be so big that I can't know people. I don't want to be so big that people can't know me. And I think there's a danger in getting too big. And so now, last thing I'll say is this, is that pastors are people. You got to forgive them, and don't judge God based on what some other man has done. It doesn't make God's true any less. It doesn't make God's word any less true. It doesn't mean what God did for you or to you through that ministry doesn't mean it wasn't true. God will use a broken vessel to do great things. And so don't hold any contempt against that guy. God will do something for him. And you can just move forward serving God. So yeah, man, those are my thoughts. I just kind of throw them together. If you got something out of it, make sure you like, share, and comment. Yeah, man, that's it. Love you. Have a great day. Bye.